This is a book that is truly worth reading. And yet, strangely enough, after finishing it, you may find yourself feeling even more stuck than before. Man's Search for Meaning is divided into two main parts. In the first part, Viktor E. Frankl recounts his personal experiences as a prisoner in Nazi concentration camps. In the second part, he introduces the psychological approach he later developed, known as logotherapy or meaning-centered therapy. Frankl was a Jewish psychiatrist living and working in Vienna, Austria. When the persecution of Jews reached its peak, he was granted permission to immigrate to the United States. However, he chose to stay behind in Austria in order to remain with his parents. Not long after, he and his entire family were arrested by the Nazis. They were separated, deported to different camps, and Frankl himself was imprisoned in 4 concentration camps over the course of the war. Life in the concentration camps was unimaginably brutal. If you were arrested and sent to a camp and were fortunate enough not to be sent directly to the gas chambers or executed in mass graves, then you had officially become a forced labor prisoner. And that was when a new version of hell truly began. Upon arrival, prisoners were stripped of everything that once defined them. Their clothes and personal belongings were taken away. Their hair was shaved off completely. They were assigned a number, and from that moment on, their entire existence was reduced to that number. They were forced to perform exhausting physical labor on construction sites while starving, with the constant threat of whips striking their backs. They were given a single set of clothing, which they had to wear until it fell apart beyond recognition. Food was scarce, nutrition was almost non-existent, hygiene was poor, and disease was always lurking. Day after day, suffering slowly crushed what little willpower remained. At that point, each prisoner faced a choice: to give up or to adapt. Every prisoner in the concentration camps had, at some point, thought about suicide. The simplest way was to throw oneself onto the electrified barbed wire fence. Under such prolonged cruelty and inhumane conditions, even the strongest wills could collapse. It took only a single moment of surrender. Once you gave up, once you lost faith in your future, you were essentially already dead. Yet there were those who chose to confront the suffering instead of surrendering to it. These individuals discovered something deeply unsettling for conventional medical knowledge. They realized that human beings could adapt to almost any condition, despite what medical textbooks claimed. Those textbooks insisted that humans could not survive without certain necessities. And yet here were prisoners who slept through freezing winters on wooden planks, who went days without bathing yet did not develop infected wounds, who never brushed their teeth yet somehow maintained healthier gums, and who survived on little sleep while performing relentless forced labor. Beyond that, prisoners had to shave regularly using shards of broken glass in order to appear healthy and presentable. Anyone who looked weak or sick was considered unfit for labor and sent to the gas chambers. Over time, hunger no longer terrified them, and beatings no longer shocked them. These prisoners were able to endure the most extreme conditions because they had something essential. They had a reason to live. They had a belief to hold on to. And that belief allowed them to rise above their circumstances. When Frankl was first arrested, he carried with him a manuscript containing his scientific research. That manuscript was later destroyed by the Nazis. From that moment on, Frankl resolved that he must survive in order to rewrite his work, because he believed it would contribute meaningfully to the field of psychiatry. He also held onto the image of his wife, who he believed was pregnant with their child. He believed that one day they would reunite and live a happy life after the war. Through his own experience, Frankl demonstrated that human beings can preserve inner freedom and mental independence even under the most extreme psychological and physical stress. Everything can be taken away from a person except one thing: the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, and the freedom to choose one's own path. Every single day and every single hour, life presents us with opportunities to make decisions. Decisions about whether we will surrender or stand upright in the face of forces that threaten to strip away our humanity. Decisions about whether we will allow ourselves to become a product of our circumstances, giving up our inner freedom and dignity, or whether we will preserve them despite everything. You do not have to be imprisoned in a camp to become a prisoner. Consider, for example, people suffering from terminal illnesses. Look at how many cancer patients face their condition. Many of them remain joyful and emotionally present with their families. They continue to work and contribute to society. Even though they know their time is limited, they refuse to see themselves as prisoners. They retain the freedom to choose their attitude toward life. That attitude is deeply admirable. No matter the circumstances, one must preserve dignity and inner freedom. One must find a reason to live, a reason to endure. As Frankl famously wrote, "A person who has a reason to live can endure almost any circumstance. Only then do the sufferings one has endured become meaningful. Only then can one say that the way those sufferings were faced was a true success." And with every experience of suffering overcome, a person becomes more complete and more resilient. That is where meaning is found. That is what gives life purpose. After the war, Frankl was liberated from the concentration camps. He later discovered that he was the sole survivor of his immediate family. His parents and his wife had all died in other camps. Despite this unimaginable loss, he chose to continue his work as a psychiatrist in Austria and devoted himself to helping others. It was during this time that he fully developed his therapeutic approach, known as logotherapy. Logotherapy focuses on the meaning of life and the meaning of human existence. In this approach, patients are guided to confront their own lives directly and to search for meaning within them. The effort to find that meaning itself becomes a source of strength and motivation, enabling individuals to overcome psychological suffering. Many of Frankl's patients suffered from psychological disorders rooted in what he described as existential conflict. These patients felt deeply disappointed in their own existence. Logotherapy seeks to analyze and uncover the hidden meaning within their lives. In modern industrial society, many people experience a profound sense of emptiness. One clear example is what Frankl called the Sunday neurosis. After a busy work week, when Sunday arrives and people finally have time to rest and reflect, they suddenly feel how empty and meaningless their lives seem. They begin to ask themselves why they are working, for whom they are living, and whether their existence has any real meaning. When these questions remain unanswered, the result is a quiet tragedy. The emptiness slowly erodes them until Monday morning arrives, and they are once again swept into the routine of work. Frankl referred to this condition as the existential vacuum. It is easy to understand why this state leads to rising rates of suicide, addiction, and depression. Yet finding answers to questions about the meaning of life is never easy. Meaning is unique to each individual and can change from day to day. Life constantly asks questions of us, and each person can only answer life through responsible action and the attitude they choose to adopt. Frankl offered a guiding principle that captures this idea powerfully. Live as if you were living for the second time, and as if you had acted wrongly the first time. The first part of this idea suggests that the present moment is a repetition of the past. The second part implies that the past can be corrected through our present actions. At any given moment, each instant of life brings us closer to death, and that moment will never return. Perhaps it is precisely this brevity that reminds us to live each moment as meaningfully as possible. According to logotherapy, there are three main paths through which human beings can discover meaning in life. The first path is through creating something or accomplishing meaningful work. The second path is through loving another person or fully experiencing something or someone. The third path is through the way we face unavoidable suffering and tragedy. The first path, finding meaning through work or creation, is relatively easy to understand. When you clearly identify what you want to devote your life to and are willing to give your time and energy to it wholeheartedly, life naturally begins to feel meaningful. You may want to become the greatest soccer player in the world or the athlete who wins the most Olympic gold medals in history. You may want to be an honest police officer who refuses corruption and always stands on the side of the people. You may want to build electric vehicles and help humanity settle on Mars. You may want to dedicate your entire life to fighting for freedom and democracy. No matter what you choose, your life gains meaning the moment you choose a path and commit yourself fully to it. The second path is love, a subject that has been explored endlessly through poetry, music, and art. You do not need to become a great historical figure to find meaning if all you want is to care for someone you love. People are capable of doing almost anything for the sake of the person they love. And when they're no longer together, everything can feel as though it collapses and life seems to lose all meaning. Everything you do becomes a means toward a single purpose, which is bringing happiness to the person you love. You seek moments of togetherness with your family, moments when you can watch your children playing joyfully side by side. In those moments, you find peace and a sense of meaning in your life. The third path is the one Frankl emphasized the most precisely because it is so often overlooked. This path is the search for meaning through tragedy and suffering. What happens if your life is filled with pain from the very beginning, such as being born with a physical disability? Or what if life seems perfect and then suddenly strikes you down with an accident or a serious illness? What would you do if one day you lost your eyesight? In such moments, you must fight. You must not lose the freedom to choose your attitude toward life. It is only through confronting tragedy that we discover our true inner strength. When we can no longer change our circumstances, such as in the case of terminal cancer, we are being challenged to change ourselves. People who experience misfortune often feel only suffering and despair. What they forget is that they also have something to be proud of. Look at individuals who have lost both arms and legs, yet still travel the world giving speeches, writing books, and inspiring countless others. Remember that the way a person faces suffering is the most admirable thing of all. If you are doing a job that you truly dislike, then find another job. Find work that you never hesitate to give your full effort to. Never work only for money. And if misfortune strikes you directly, smile and show it how strong you truly are. That is the theory. But not everyone has the courage to change. In moments like these, people often create excuses to distract themselves and deceive themselves into believing that they are living well. You only live once. Do not live someone else's life. Hopefully, after reading this book, at least your way of thinking will begin to change. If you can go through your days without ever questioning the meaning of your life, that is fine. There is nothing wrong with that. But if you do care and you still have not found an answer, then this is the moment to act. Sometimes we know exactly what is best for us, yet we lack the courage to do it. We know with certainty that we will regret a decision, yet we still make it, or fail to act at all. We build our own prisons and lock ourselves inside them, becoming prisoners of our own making. We lie still and allow life to strip away our freedom to choose our attitude toward existence. Never live that way. Life is short and full of uncertainty. Only the past is unchangeable. The state of having lived is the most certain form of existence. At every moment, each person must decide what kind of mark they will leave behind in their past and then move forward with dignity. Live in such a way that one day children will envy you for having a remarkable past, for the things you have done, the people you have loved, and the suffering you have bravely endured. And if you must suffer, transform that suffering into something you will always be proud of.